Good evening. Kia ora whanau. Marten Rabarts here, Director of Whanau Marama, New Zealand International Film Festival. This is exciting. Many of you have just watched the groundbreaking landmark documentary called Steelers, the First Gay Rugby Club. This is a film that I was delighted we could bring to New Zealand. It felt like the perfect home for this film to meet the world. And tonight, as promised, we have the director, Eammon Ashton-Atkinson. Eammon, you're there. Let's see. Eammon is in New York. Hello. And he is, that backdrop is real. It's not one of those, hey, I'm in a studio and this is like, projected behind me. He's actually, that's his apartment's backdrop.
Or is it one of those Zoom backgrounds, you know?
Yeah, certainly not a Zoom background, yeah. Eammon, it's so great. You're up super early there, totally appreciate it. As I said, one of the most exciting films for me personally to be programming here for us in New Zealand. I think diversity and inclusion in sports is a major issue for the world. It doesn't just apply to sexual orientation, it applies to race, it applies, currently an issue about transgender rights in terms of playing within their gender. But you've just sort of bitten into something that I think is very close to the New Zealand heart. And I just want to say, thank you for doing that. It wasn't an easy journey for you to make this film. Tell us a little bit about the birth of it. We hear about it in the documentary, so we don't need to hear the whole story, but you got concussion and you thought, I'll make a movie. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm a TV reporter by trade. Sorry, I'll just do it so my face isn't full screen while I talk to you. I'm a TV reporter by trade, and I do my own camera work, and I played for this club, and we were going to this tournament, which is every 2 years. And as you said, we got concussion. It was actually a week after my wedding to John, who I met through the club. And my brother was there watching, and none of my family had seen me play rugby since I was 12 years old. So I was sort of going extra hard into the tackles to try and impress my brother, and hit my head on someone else and got concussion. So if it weren't for my brother being there, there were so many sliding door moments that sort of led to this film coming about. And the competition was in Amsterdam, where all the gay rugby teams from around the world meet. And I didn't really just want to go there and get drunk on the sidelines for a week. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to hire a nice cinema lens. I'm going to take my camera. I've always had this dream to make a documentary. And I thought, well, this will be the perfect subject. And it's very manageable. We can set it over a couple of days and see what happens. And to be honest, I kind of felt a bit like a fraud, imposter syndrome. I'm there walking around with this big camera, just standing around filming people standing around. And I didn't really know whether we were going to have enough material to film, to make anything of it. And all these wonderful things started happening. And I didn't even have the characters lined up, to be honest. Simon, I knew I really wanted his story in there because he and I had both talked about our issues with mental health and depression and how the club had helped that. So I really wanted him to be in it. And he was a bit hesitant at first because he didn't really want the whole world knowing about his personal struggles.
Kind of understandably. I mean, he is very exposed. Actually, all in each way, each of your characters is very open, and sometimes it's quite raw. How did you bring him to the point where he thought, okay, this should happen, or I trust this maker enough to share my personal truth with him?
Well, I think the fact that we knew each other and had that relationship already was a big factor. I don't think I would have got the same thing was I an external production company coming in to make this documentary.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so it's really like in those interviews, it's just me, my camera, and them in their bedrooms in this hotel in Amsterdam. And like with Simon, I was sitting on the other side to kind of change the eye line, and I literally pushed record, and I have to keep looking over just to make sure that it was still recording. And I and prayed that it was all in focus when I got back. And when he made that decision on the second day, he said, okay, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it properly. So and he did. And then with Nick, I didn't really know Nick all that well beforehand because I was playing in the third team and the film focuses on the first team. I knew of her, obviously. And then again, by chance, I was sitting after that first training session that you see at the start of the film, sitting on the tram going back. And I was like, Nick, how did you get into rugby anyway? Thanks for letting me film, it's great. And she told me the grandfather story, which I think is one of the most beautiful moments of the film. Always brings a tear to my eye. And then I was like, oh my God, you are the next person, because I didn't ever imagine having a gay woman in this story about this gay men's rugby team. And then I was asking her, who should I pick for the third person? And she goes, well, what about Drew and all his drag? And I'm like, that is a brilliant idea. And as it happened, I just volunteered to film his drag shows for the club social media. So
okay.
And I didn't delete that footage. So I had all the shots of him doing the splits and the jumps. And so all these things came together. And I just I'm a believer that sometimes things are meant to be, and it was very much a case for this project.
Well, you got extra. Were there any characters that you focused on for a bit? I know it was just you, and you only had a very short time frame. Were there any characters that didn't make it into the cut of the film?
There was one. I interviewed the captain of the team, and I toiled whether to include his story, but it became less a film about rugby and more a film about belonging. And I thought these three stories with the other characters kind of represented this spectrum of stories. So their stories told the broader story about why gay rugby helps people. And so I just thought I'll just focus on that. And I got some advice from Grace Tobin, who's listed as a producer on the film, and she and I know each other from TV back in Australia. She's a producer on 60 Minutes, and she was the first person I called about this project. And I said, look, I've never done long format storytelling. Do you have any advice? And she said, pick one thing and do that properly. Don't try and cover every team. Don't try and cover every person in the club. Pick one thing and do it properly, and pick three characters and follow them. So, yeah.
Was there, I mean, you open up about your personal relationship to rugby, bullying and negativity when you were young and needing to come through that. So, we hear this part of your backstory. Did each of those characters that you chose speak to a different part of your own experience? Because was there something in you in each of them, perhaps?
I think so, especially Simon. And it's been an interesting process going through this all and doing the press surrounding this film festival, because I've really had to start talking about things that happened in my past that I'd really pushed away and really forgotten about. And to be honest, it seems like 3 or 4 lifetimes ago each time I had depression in my life, which was caused by all the bullying I got. I kind of had to reinvent myself and find who I was. And so I feel like a different person to the person at school, to the person who was a TV reporter in Australia, to the person at university. And so I've had to kind of open these boxes that I'd shut. And it's been quite a journey. And when I was making the film, the intention was not to include myself in it. And I started an edit with the characters self-narrating, and it wasn't working. I edited about 40 minutes of the film, and then I reformatted my computer to speed it up, and I didn't back it up properly. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? I'd spent dozens of hours already on the edit. So I sat on it and I just pushed it away, and we moved over to New York because we got a green card, my husband and I was drumming up work, so I was at home a lot and had a bit of time, and I was like, Israel Folau started making his posts about Hellaway's.
Right. I'm glad I was just going to ask you about that. But yeah, no, roll on. Yeah, just.
And so I was like, you know what? Stuff him. I'm going to make this film about gay rugby, because if there are kids out there watching who are looking up to him and believing the BS that he's saying, I want to have a counterpoint. And I almost felt this responsibility. And when I started going back through the footage a year later, I was like, oh my God, there's some gold in here, like Nick's interview, Simon's interview, Drew's interview. And it was just a wonderful experience revisiting it. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to include my own story just as a technical device to help push the story forward. But then also just to kind of, put a big middle finger up to Israel Folau, if I can say that.
It's interesting. I mean, absolutely, that, great that was an impulse. I was having a conversation last night after one of our other screenings called with one of the leaders of the transgender community in Auckland from a Pacific nation. And she was sharing some of the background of what it's like in terms of the export from the USA of fundamentalist Christian belief systems that Israel is part of. She said, it's much bigger than just him. It's not that he's a singular bigot. It's interesting that there's the export of quite fundamentalist ideas from the USA to the Pacific is impacting us across the world. But it's great that it did trigger you to make this film. What did you, aside from that, like, this is like a big finger to Israel Folau, what did you hope it might bring to the community? You speak about it a little bit in the film, but I mean, you were bullied. There are people out there who don't feel they have a place in sport, certainly not a place in rugby. Did you have like a mission statement for yourself when you were cutting it finally?
Very loosely. I think now that when it was finished, I could reflect back on it and go, oh wow, this is kind of what it says. But I think for me, like, not just a place to belong in the sport community, I think it's a place to belong in the gay community as well, because like in Brisbane, I didn't really have many gay friends. It's very much based around the scene there. Didn't really feel like I fitted in, and like I never really had meaningful gay friends. And then when I moved to this club, I was like, oh, you can actually have that. And so I wanted to capture that. And I also like wanted to make a film that I wish I had seen as a kid growing up. And
right.
I spoke about this on the Kim Hill interview I did the other day, how a teenage boy in Auckland went to the premiere on Friday night and took his parents in school still. And he messaged me after saying how he's been bullied. He's finding things really tough, but he found the film really inspiring to know that, things do get better. And
wow.
like, to me, it gives me goosebumps now, because, if someone had said that to me, I don't know how I would have felt growing up, because I just, was alone a lot of the time. And I think a lot of gay men can relate to that. And life is different now, but it wasn't 10, 15 years ago. And obviously from this kid's message, it's still the same now.
No, that's what a beautiful message to get through. Like, even if that was the only thing that happened, that would be enough for all the effort, right?
Yeah,
that's totally amazing. I mean, beyond that, there's been this crazy response to the film here in the media. I just wanted to mention that the media has picked up on you. You've had Kim Hill on the radio. You had Breakfast TV with Maddie. That was a really lovely interview as well. And again, touching a real core. He was moved by some of the things you were talking about, and I'm sure I was watching, and I was like touched as well. In the same way, but the depth of the button this pushes, I think, is shown by, very proudly, our communications team were able to present the trailer of your film to the New Zealand Rugby Union, and they put it up on the Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter feeds of the All Blacks. Now, this it'd been like a dream. We'd hoped for it, and kudos to the rugby union for going like, we do talk about diversity and inclusion. So They put that up. Now it's gone crazy. In 7 hours, which was the point at which I went to introduce your film for the world premiere, it had gone up 7 hours before. There had been 79,000 views of the trailer in 7 hours. Now I just checked. It's, let me hang up.
Around 400,000.
We are at 220,000 on Instagram. We're at 176,000 on Facebook and tens of thousands on Twitter. So you're heading towards like 500,000 hits of this thing across social media. Yeah, I'm doing that too. It's like, wow. There's also there's a lot of commentary, most of it positive, some of it negative. Obviously, it's always going to be there, but like overwhelmingly positive. And you know, something that really struck me time and time and time again, it's people who are followers of the All Blacks, because they are followers of all of these social media sites. They're going, hey, and tagging a friend or tagging a brother or tagging a cousin or a row of people and saying, look, this is what you've been looking for. This is something for you. They're telling their gay friends and family, lesbian friends and family, queer friends and family, trans friends and family, whoever they are, they're saying, look at this thing. There's a space for you in sport, a space for you in rugby. And I was just astonished. It's like a tsunami of recommendations to people who are clearly hungry for the thing you've just opened up for them.
Yeah, I mean, I can't thank you and the team enough. And you guys didn't, and the All Blacks and the rugby union. You guys didn't tell me that it was happening or that it was even an idea. And I was sitting there on my couch on Friday night, feeling a little bit deflated that I couldn't be in New Zealand for the world premiere. And we were watching RuPaul's Drag Race and petting our new French bulldog puppy, so platinum gay card out there. And we got a text message from our friend in New Zealand saying the All Blacks have just shared your trailer. And I was confused because I was like, that just doesn't make sense. Like maybe they've shared the New Zealand International Film Festival trailer and there's like 3 seconds of my film in there, or who knows what. And then we log on and my husband stood up and he's like, oh my God. And it had been up for an hour, had 20,000 views, and I didn't sleep for the next 8 hours. I was up in bed at 4 a.m. just like buzzing. And for me, it was like, I mean, what you couldn't for this film ask for a better endorsement. One of the top, if the top rugby club. Oh,
we're the top. I'm sorry, there's no if.
The top rugby
New Zealand Whanau Marama Film Festival.
Yes, I don't want to get trolled by everyone.
Just to be clear, okay? Do you see what colour I'm wearing?
One of the best
sports in the
world. to get that endorsement, and you just can't measure the good that will have. And when we're talking about social change, it's things like that push the conversation forward. And as you said, people tagging their friends and I love it. Someone said unfollowing this disgusting whatever, and then the All Blacks went bye.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, they said, I saw that. It was hilarious. There was like someone was saying, I am leaving this feed forever because this is disgusting that you're promoting this like evilness. And yeah, and then the rugby union moderators went bye. Bye. It was great.
And my sister called me and she's like, Aim, like, I'm so excited for you, but I just wanted to check you're okay. You're not like getting upset by the negative messages. And I was like, are you kidding me? I am on a high. Nothing can bring me down. And, I think these days people can see these trolls and uneducated people for who they are. And I usually just ignore people because I do a lot of Donald Trump stories for my job. I get trolled all the time on Twitter. So I tend not to use Twitter very much, but one person started replying to my comments on the All Blacks post. So that was a bit personal to me. And I said, he's like, why do we need a gay rugby club? And I think that's a legitimate question, because if we're talking about diversity and inclusion, don't we just all want to be a part of the same family? And I think that's very true. But I was like, watch the film, because that is kind of the thesis of the film. And then he's like, oh, that doesn't interest me. And then I replied, well, if you're not even interested to educate yourself, I'm not interested in your views. So, and that was
So
I really wanted to say. My husband was like, don't engage. But I was like, there comes a point where we have to stand up and call this out for what it is. And I was so encouraged to see a lot of that happening on their posts.
There were posts saying, like, it's really a shame that particular, that there has to be a league for gay players, and that should change, but we really understand, why it's there. So there was that very middle ground as well, going like, it shouldn't have to be like this, we should all be able to play together, but we get why it's there. So yeah, just the outpouring of awareness, you're consciousness raising, awareness raising, just for having the trailer there, let alone wait till people see the full documentary and all of the layers that are inside that. So, huge congratulations. I mean, the screenings we've had in bricks and mortar venues, cinemas, the world premiere that I introduced, had the delight to introduce in Auckland, was really fun. It was packed with the Auckland Falcons gay rugby team in Christchurch. I've just heard we've had sold out in Christchurch. There's second screening going on in Christchurch. So I guess the Heroes will be supporting the film there. Yep. And here in Wellington, our Minister of Finance and Deputy Minister of Culture, Grant Robertson, who is like a major figure in our government, he was special guest of our screening. He and his husband Alf, because they met as members of a gay rugby club. So their personal story is mirrored in your documentary. And arguably the second most important person in our current government after the Prime Minister. And he was really delighted to be invited. So he saw it yesterday here in Wellington. So I think it's reaching out to people who need to hear their own stories told, or need to see themselves represented. And yet it's playing this other role of outreach and awareness and raising, which is just a fantastic impact. And then, in the middle, it's just a really cool film that you made on the smell of an oily rag but you did that thing that great documentary makers know what to do, is make sure you have good camera and sound.
Yeah.
and have a nose for wonderful characters, and know when to turn the camera away from something you were thinking you wanted to shoot, and actually shoot the thing that reveals itself in front of you. This is, for me, and I've working with filmmakers and documentary makers and fiction filmmakers, in documentary, the instinct to know when to turn away from what you'd planned because a better thing is under your nose. Yeah. That's all through this film. You can, I'm giving you a compliment as a kind of,
I really appreciate
well, by your own admission, a first-time maker, and you're ambitious to make a documentary, but your instincts are the same instincts that the most seasoned documentary makers always lean on and rely on to turn their eye and their gaze in the right direction.
What a compliment. And, for filmmakers watching this, I would just encourage them, because I'm all self-taught. I learned how to use a camera from YouTube, watching YouTube videos. And I remember when I was a TV reporter, I really expressed an interest to other cameramen to learn the camera and ask some questions. Some helped me out, most didn't want to. But, if you have a dream, just go out there and follow it and make it happen. And as you said, this film was made, the production of the film, not post, was done with a budget of basically $1,500. And then just the cost of hiring the lens, because I thankfully own a camera. And then post-production, I just paid for the color gradest and got a professional sound mix once it got selected in festivals. But if you have a dream, go out there and follow it.
Absolutely. I mean, the way the story of the film, the people you portray, your own story, and just that is like this is the first film of many, I feel. It's a great milestone on your personal journey as a human being, as a sportsman, but also as a filmmaker. So congratulations to you. Enjoy that beautiful New York morning that's coming up over your shoulder. One of the cities I love most. So you enjoy it for me, because I'm we're not able to travel, and you're over there.
Actually quite boring at the moment, so you're not missing out.
Okay, thanks for that reassurance. Yes. But meanwhile, we continue to share, as of tonight, your film for the coming 7 days. So anyone watching who hasn't seen it, you can find it on our website, nziff.co.nz. It's waiting there to be seen. Eammon, thank you so much.
Thank you and the team for giving this film a wonderful home. And as you said, it was supposed to have its premiere in London, but I couldn't think of a better place, now to hold it. And things are meant to be, aren't they?
When I called my friend Trisha Tuttle, who's the director of all the London film festivals, including the BFI Flair, and that had been cancelled, and to find you, I said to her, I think this film could blow the roof off in New Zealand, and the social response already has proven that. So I'm going to send her those figures just to assure her that instinct and her connection she helped me make with you was the right one.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.